Welcome to the channel for the future caretakers of resurrected species. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keepers Association.
Hello there. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keeper Association. My name is Austin. Creatures with multiple heads. Always in the realm of strange and fantasy. Especially throughout human history, like mythical creatures like the Hydra and Cerberus of Greek mythology, to even science fiction concepts like King Ghidorah from the Godzilla movies. But despite all the fantasy and mythologies, creatures with multiple heads are real. Maybe not magical, but they do exist. This is basically a phenomenon that's known as Polycephaly, or Polycephaly. Animals that display polycephaly, or polycephalic animals, have always been known throughout humanity for thousands of years, throughout all of human history. They are often gone from like animals with two heads, or animals with two faces, or even conjoined. This has happened throughout all of human history, especially among humans. And it always fascinates us of the two heads with just one body. What causes polycephaly is basically that when twins develop, they will separate and develop on their own accord. In polycephaly, however, the twins fail to separate, and they are pretty much joined together as they grow. And as I mentioned, and as you're seeing with the images, it could go from a whole menagerie of different appearances. But also, animals, and even people who are polycephalic don't always make it, or they either die at birth, die a few days afterwards, but some could be able to live for a relatively good amount of time, or even a short amount of time. Even though the images I've shown of mostly mammals with like one bird, polycephaly is also known with reptiles as well. Snakes are being one of the most common ones, along with two-headed turtles. And what's even more interesting is that polycephaly is not a recent phenomenon. It has actually happened many times. It even happened in the fossil record, and we actually have a fossil that proves this. In northeastern China in 2006, a two-headed fossil was discovered, and it was revealed to the world in 2007. Other than having two heads, the specimen is an infant reptile of a species called Hyphalosaurus, a species of reptile that lived in the early Cretaceous period. Said to have lived between 123 to 120 million years ago. Now this is definitely interesting because this is the first time in the fossil record that we have actually seen two-headed animals in the fossil record. It's a very fascinating concept. And anyone can imagine trying to take care of not just a prehistoric animal, but a two-headed prehistoric animal would definitely be quite a feat. However, before we really get into how to take care of a two-headed prehistoric animal, we'll need to have some ideas on how to take care of a regular headed animal, a singular headed animal. And the first thing we need to do is to figure out what exactly is this species of reptile that has a two-headed representative.
Hyphalosaurus, name meaning the submerged lizard, is a fascinating genus of freshwater aquatic reptiles that lived, as mentioned previously, during the early Cretaceous, about 125 million years ago, in what is now the Jehol biota of the Liaoning province of China. They are members of the Chorsidae group, which are often described as crocodile mimics, though Hyphalosaurus looked more like a miniature long-necked sea monster or a freshwater plesiosaur. They were relatively small, usually around 30 to 60 centimeters, or 12 to 24 inches long, a range between 1 to 3 feet long. They possessed an incredibly long neck, containing up to 19 vertebrae, and a small head with needle-like teeth. They were highly specialized for life in the water. Their limbs were relatively small, suggesting they were not very mobile on land, and they likely used their long, flattened tails for propulsion. And speaking of their life in water, the Johol Biota was a lush, volcanic region that was dominated by wetlands and numerous lakes, not rivers, deltas, or marine habitats. Rainfall was seasonal, alternating between semi-arid and lush conditions. The climate was temperate, so it was not tropical, but not too cold either. The Johol ecosystem was interrupted periodically by ash eruptions from volcanoes to the west. On the terms of their reproduction, fossils have been found showing that Hyphalosaurus was viviparous, gave birth to live young, rather than laying eggs. This is a common adaptation for reptiles that become so specialized for water that returning to land to lay eggs is dangerous or physically impossible. While there are still some that would argue for egg laying, live birth seems to be more likely.
Now that we got a bit of an idea of what this animal is as a species, and before we get to the two-headed, let's see how we could be able to take care of a one-headed one first.
While Hyphalosaurus has no direct living descendants, its body plan and ecological niche, a small, long-necked freshwater ambush predator, mirror modern semi-aquatic specialists like the caiman lizard, Chinese water dragon, the Crocodilina gharial, or even certain species of soft-shell turtles. So, with these modern species, it would give us a decent idea of how we could be able to tend to this prehistoric reptile. On the terms of containment, the Hyphalosaurus inhabited still water lakes, not fast-moving rivers. Their long, multivertebrate necks would be at risk of kinking or muscle strain in high-current environments. Because they were highly aquatic but still needed to breathe air and likely bask, you would need a 70-30 water-to-land ratio. This would possibly be altered whenever more studies on the animals, skeletons, on how they would deal with terrestrial locomotion, or if ever we actually do resurrect and contain this species through trial and error. Basically a long, shallow riparium, basically 70% water and 30% soft-sloped shore. Although they were highly aquatic, they would needed shallow margins for resting and basking. On the water volume for the tank, a 75-gallon long tank at minimum for a single adult. Since they were used to the deep, still lakes of the Johol biota, the water should be at least 12 to 18 inches deep for an individual, probably deeper for when including more animals. Hyphalosaurus weren't strong river swimmers, they were lake dwellers, so we would need to use a high-quality canister filter. But definitely keep the output gentle so they aren't constantly fighting a current. Constantly fighting a current would stress them and would exhaust them to the point of them just giving up and sink. The substrate that you would need for the tank should either be fine sand, round silt, or smooth river pebbles. Avoid sharp and jagged rocks that could snag their long, delicate necks and their soft underbellies. On temperature, the Johol biota was a temperate to even a subtropical volcanic region. It wasn't exactly a steaming jungle, but it definitely wasn't cold either. So, on temperature of the enclosure, best to keep it stable at between 24 and 26 degrees Celsius, or 75 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit. A heat lamp over a flat rock or floating log reaching 32 degrees Celsius, or 90 degrees Fahrenheit, would definitely be desirable. UVB lighting is vital for any reptile, modern or prehistoric, to help prevent metabolic bone disease, or MBD. Metabolic bone disease is a catch-all term for a series of disorders that cause the skeleton to weaken, soften, or become deformed. In the simplest terms, it is the reptile equivalent of rickets or osteoporosis, and for a long-necked animal like Hyphalosaurus, it would be a death sentence. It generally caused by a calcium deficiency, and this can be avoided with supplementing calcium into the reptile's diet. It won't mean anything if UVB lighting is not provided. UVB light helps the body make vitamin D, which is a key component for proper calcium absorption. High-output T5 linear bulbs would be necessary to mimic the Cretaceous sun for the reptile. And speaking of calcium, let's get to the diet. Based on their needle-like teeth, Hyphalosaurus was a specialist in snap feeding. They can't crush or chew their food. Their mouths are basically fish traps designed for slippery, soft-bodied prey. In captivity, their diet would resemble that of a modern piscivore or devourer of fish. Since it is possible that they use suction feeding or lateral strikes, in conjunction with their teeth, the prey must be alive to trigger the hunting reflex, but it must be small enough to be swallowed whole without the fish's fins damaging the Hyphalosaurus's throat. So it would be best to primarily feed them small, live, freshwater fish like guppies and mosquito fish and ghost shrimp. To help make certain that the reptiles are getting their proper nutrition, we must gut load the feeder fish with calcium and vitamin D3 supplements before offering them to the reptile. However, never feed goldfish or rosy red minnows. These modern fish contain thiaminase, an enzyme that blocks vitamin B1 absorption, which would lead to neurological stargazing and death in a long-necked reptile. Along with fish, invertebrates would also be a good addition to the Hyphalosaurus's diet. Along with the ghost shrimp mentioned earlier, earthworms and crickets offered via tongs would be a good addition as they provide extra protein and chitin, which is basically the fiber provided by insects. Along with the size, volume, and temperature of the enclosure is needed, the Hyphalosaurus's enclosure would also need behavioral welfare considerations and sensory needs so that the animal would not be bored and develop abnormal behaviors. They would need dense aquatic vegetation like modern Vallisneria or Ludwigia, so they could be able to hide when need be, and it would also be good for enrichment when they hunt for fish. These reptiles spent much of their time hovering in the water column, using plants as anchors for their tails, while their necks extended to look for prey. Long-necked reptiles like Hyphalosaurus are likely to be extremely skittish. Visual barriers like the heavy planting, along with tannins in the water to make it tea-colored, would be essential to make them feel secure.
Now that we have a good idea of how to take care of a one-headed Hyphalosaurus, now we got more of an idea how to take care of a two-headed variety. While the needs of the two-headed Hyphalosaurus is in some ways very similar to a one-headed variety, having two heads definitely gives it a lot more special treatment. Because while physically it would be one animal, mentally speaking, you're going to be dealing with two animals at the same time. So there's definitely be a lot of considerations. And interestingly enough, an animal dealing with polycephaly, it's not always going to be the exact same as just a body with two heads and necks. Now, a body with two heads and necks is definitely the more commonplace polycephaly example, but there are different varieties as well. Just like how we've seen with the earlier images, there are some that have two heads, but practically just one neck, and the heads are right next to each other. And then there are those who are literally attached to the hip. Like there's one variety where they have two pairs of forelimbs and only one pair of rear limbs, and then they're pretty much split from the waist. But then there's also ones that are similar that do have a pair of forelimbs and a pair of hind limbs. So polycephaly can exist in multiple ways, and this can have multiple effects on how they are taken care of. But let's just say, for the sake of the argument, we'll focus more primarily, if not completely, on the classic one body, two necks with two heads. Now, taking care of a two-headed animal is definitely going to have a significant amount of challenges compared to taking care of a two-headed one. Like, one would be that, well, I'm pretty sure we've seen, not just in real animals, but also in fiction, that creatures with two heads, or something even with its two personalities, would clash with each other. Like, you have two different personalities trapped in one body, sharing the same metabolism, and they will just not get along with each other. You think dealing with roommates is bad, or siblings is bad. Whew. Imagine you're pretty much attached to the hip to that person, literally. And just like pairing two animals together in a space, they're going to get aggressive. There's going to be at least one head that's going to be aggressive to the other one, and this will cause injuries and potentially even kill the other head. And of course, you got a dead head connected to a living body. Anyone who's ever had to deal with a limb that's pretty much dead and attached to a living body, it's never good. And it gets even worse when it involves food. Like basically, if one head was basically eating food, the other one would have a hunger response, not because of its brain, but because it feels the swallowing reflex. And pretty much like dealing with two dogs. One wants the food while the other one's getting it. You're gonna get some fights and aggressive behavior from one head. So, in order to avoid this, you can't just simply broadcast the food and just let the animal have at it. You're gonna have to feed both heads simultaneously, relatively separate from each other. Basically, you'll need to be able to target feed them. Basically meaning that with soft tipped tongs, you will need to make sure both heads are being able to be fed at the same time. You could pretty much use like different colored tongs, like one is designated for one head and the other is designated to the other, to be able to train the animals to see that, hey, this tong means that this head's getting that food, and the other one means that this one's gonna go to the other head. So this way, you could be able to limit the aggressive feeding of the other. And also at the same time, you need, even though you got two heads that basically want to eat quite a bit, you gotta remember they're maybe two heads, but they have only one stomach. So you have to be careful not to overfeed the animal. If both heads get a full meal, like basically like equivalent of two individual animals eating, the digestive system tract could definitely become impacted or overwhelmed. So you're basically going to need to feed it pretty much in the same way like you just feed a one-headed animal. But so you're definitely going to need, but make sure both heads are being fed the same amount. But it's basically the same amount of food you would give to a one-headed animal divided by 2. So there is definitely that. Now, along with feeding, we definitely need to take consideration for the safety of their enclosure. Obviously, the Hyphalosaurus already has a large, cumbersome neck. Then you get a 2-neck variety that has like a fork in its anatomy. This will definitely be a nightmare for mobility, especially since, like I mentioned before, each has a different personality, and one wants to go one way while the other wants to go the other way. So yeah, you could definitely see that this would be a bit of an issue. Now, there are some ways you can definitely do this. That you could be able to, like increase the density of soft aquatic plants so that they can act like buoyancy pillows. Since a two-headed animal is going to have a front-heavy center of gravity without enough plant cover for it to be able to rest on. So that way it won't give so much fatigue. However, at the same time, you would also have some open swimming space, especially any water plants that are like branchy and too dense, or basically remove any narrow crevices. So you could have there's a possibility that the head could be able to get one head stuck while the other one goes, and be able to, a branch could be able to get right in the middle of those two heads and stop them. It could become pretty much stuck, and probably stuck to the point of them drowning. Also, at the same time, you definitely need to have some low depth on it. You need to make sure that the water level is shallower than a standard tank, because it'll be, since you got two heads trying to work together, it's going to be more of a hassle. So you definitely need to make it more shallow. And also, if one head becomes tired or dormant, the other one could be able to breathe more easily. And, oh boy, you can imagine that having two heads bicker and fight about which direction to go, this will definitely be a hassle for it. Along with feeding and exhibit considerations, there are definitely a good amount of medical considerations to take. Respiration, neurological, and metabolism wise. Especially considering that you got two necks will merge into one trachea, one esophagus at different points. And respiration, if the merging point is high up, like closer to the heads, there is definitely a high risk of one head inhaling water while the other one is eating, and that would definitely cause issue. So that's another reason why you keep the water level shallower than you would to a regular one-handed animal. And on the same time, on the terms of a neurological, like mentioned before, both heads will have different personalities, and they want to go one direction or the other. So this will definitely cause a issue. This cause like a chronic stress, but this also will cause like issues for the immune system. So, and when you keep the animal in a place, make sure the area is quiet with little to no foot traffic, so that way the animal won't be stretched out of their mind. And also metabolism. Now, polycephalic animals tend to have a slower growth rate, so they're basically a slower metabolism than that of a regular one-handed animal. Because, mind you, the heart and the lungs are working pretty hard to be able to oxygenate two different brains, so it's obvious they will not be as big or grow as fast. So, while I definitely said that you need to be able to feed them indifferently, it'd probably be best to feed them like smaller, more frequent meals of like basically a more slurry injected or more softer fish, so to be able to help reduce the energy costs for like basically for digestion. So as you can definitely see, it's definitely not going to be an easy ordeal dealing with a two-headed animal. There are other medical issues to worry about as well, like the fold junction, like especially watch out when they're shedding their skin. Make certain that this little junction right here is able to get the shed skin out, but also make sure there's no cracks and cracks that lead to bleeding, and also bacteria could be able to thrive well in this fold junction as well. And also make certain that they're more or less they're pretty much breathing in sync. Any abnormal form of breathing could definitely mean like a lung infection or something wrong with the heart. And also, cloaca, or basically the rear end of a reptile. Basically, they both share a single digestive tract, so any kind of impaction or anything like that would definitely affect both heads very negatively. Now, as you can definitely tell, taking care of two heads is definitely not for amateurs and not easy. However, just like with any animal, whether it's a prehistoric animal has been resurrected or an animal is born differently, it's definitely our job to be able to make certain that these animals are able to get the best life possible. So, let's definitely try that, shall we? If you made it this far, thank you for watching this video. I definitely tell you, this is definitely one topic for a video I've always been wanting to do for a long time. Ever since that both I've learned of this fossil, and when I've learned so much about two-headed animals prior, like two-headed turtles, two-headed snakes, and so forth. Yeah, I definitely wondered what it would have been like to take care of such a two-headed prehistoric animal. And I have no doubt that we're probably going to find more polycephaly animals in the future. Maybe same thing on dinosaurs that is not related to Jurassic World. Well, it's within the realm of possibilities. And who knows, maybe I might do a video on that sometime in the future. I want to say a special thank you to Keenan Taylor. He's been able to help make illustrations for me since the very beginning. I will send you a link to his YouTube and DeviantArt page in the description box down below. I also want to say thanks to Tendorman. He's been able to help make illustrations for my videos, and I greatly appreciate his work. I'll send you a link to his DeviantArt page down below. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say thank you to Alexander Gaber. He was able to make most of the illustrations for this video. And and again, if you're watching this, Alexander, thank you ever so kindly for this. If you like this video and others like it and like to see more of it, hit that like, subscribe button, and you'll be given up to date on any videos that come up, and it helps support me. So if you haven't already, please do that, and share it with your friends who are interested in this kind of stuff as well. If anyone wants to be able to sponsor a future video, email me here, and we could be able to get to work on it. Next video would be a Paleovator video, Gigantopithecus on the Western Ghats in India. This one's definitely going to be a fun one. I hope that each and every one of you has a grand day. Adios, until next time.
Welcome to the